Okay, folks, we are almost done. We are almost done with this nice little linked spreadsheet model. And the only thing we have left are these two items on the balance sheet. Okay. So in your prior examples and in that little in-class exam, you were just given the numbers, or you were asked to create what I call a plug here for the cash to make everything balance. What we're going to do now, we're going to do it right. Okay. So to recap where we were, right? We have all of our assumptions over here on one page. We have an income statement that is developed from the assumptions, and if I go into the formula tab and I ask it to show me the formulas, you will see that everything right in this column here, it is entirely formulas. There are none that are plugged in. Our cash flow, likewise, if we show the formulas there, everything is calculating, nothing is a plug, which is what we want to see. And so the next thing we need to do is do our balance sheet in such a way that it is always going to balance no matter what our inputs are. Okay, so we've got two figures in the balance sheet that need to be calculated. We need to pick up the cash, the current level of cash, and we need to pick up the retained earnings. And if this model is working correctly, by the end of the day, this balance check should say 0, right? There, it should be in balance. So let's first start with cash. That one's easy. Our ending cash for the year is going to be our beginning cash plus our net change in cash balance for the year, which is this figure here. So let's go ahead and calculate that. So this ending cash is going to be our beginning cash plus the net change in cash balance for the year. Now notice this is a negative number, so essentially by adding a negative, we're going to subtract the 33, and sure enough, so now we had 57 minus 33, which gives us 24. And now our retained earnings, right? Remember, we have to think about what retained earnings are, right? It is our net income minus whatever dividends or owner's withdrawal was taken out. So first thing we have to do, again, just like our new cash balance, we have to start with what we started with our beginnings. So it's last year's retained earnings plus this year's net income, which is going to be this number. Now, I've got this set up to show the formulas, but it doesn't matter if I had taken the formulas. This will read as a number, so don't worry about that. Plus the cash flow arising from the dividends. Okay. Now, you'll notice that I used a plus sign here because these cash flows from dividends or withdrawals are going to show up as a negative number, so therefore you're going to add that negative to your net income to come up with the change in cash flow. So if I hit enter and cross my fingers, I should have a balance sheet that balances at this point. And miracle of miracles, I do. So this is beautiful, right? So now we have 3 linked financial statements. We can go ahead and get rid of our highlighting there, so everything looks consistent. And then for heaven's sake, right now, save it, right? So we have a financial model that works right now. Save it like your life depended on it. Now let's try to break it. Okay, because what we want to do is stress test the model before you send anything out. This is another one of your, I guess, your best practices. Make sure that your model works even in illogical situations. So let's go to, and our test for whether the model works is going to be whether our balance sheet balances. Right? If there's something that's broken, it's going to show up as an imbalance, and then hopefully, well, I hope that nothing will show up while I'm just doing these simple tests. But what I'll do after we do the simple tests is I'll show you how to troubleshoot if you find that that your model doesn't work the way that you want it to. Okay, so let's give this a try. Let's make our sales number lower than our cost of goods sold and see what happens. So let's say 3 million. Okay, we are still in balance. Cost us 485 negative in cash, which honestly doesn't make logical sense. You can't really have negative $485,000 in cash, but the balance sheet does balance, so that's good. So let's go ahead and undo that. And how about if we change our fixed operating expenses to 150,000? Now we also have a negative cash balance here, but our balance sheet does balance, so that's good. Now, if this were reality, you can't really have a negative cash balance, right? So we would probably want to set up some conditional formatting that gives us an error message when our cash balance is negative. So let's set that up over here. Okay, so let's create an error message that says if our cash balance is less than 0, then let's just write something. Cash balance less than 0, check assumptions. Right, and then we'll just leave it blank, put a blank space there for if it's greater than 0, and we'll see if that works. Okay, so so this is a 0 that shows up because it's a null value, right? So if you don't indicate to Excel that you want it to be blank by basically putting a blank space in between two quotation marks, it'll return a 0. So let's see how this works now. And I'm literally doing this in real time, like you guys are just watching me flub my way through this. I hadn't practiced this part at all. I think it's probably useful for you to see that. Yep, so there it is, right? So now, if I make this, let's say I made an error and I left out a 0, right? So now I'm going to say 385000, right? Now, this error message comes out. So that's good. I like that. I like that a lot. So that's the first thing. The other thing is you could put that kind of an error message here in your balance check line. Instead of saying the difference, you could write something that says if that calculated value is not 0, so if it's greater than or less than 0, then you would say balance sheet does not balance. And otherwise you could again have it be blank. So that way you wouldn't see these zeros, right? So now we have nothing showing up here. I kind of like that. Actually, you know what? Let's copy that formula right over there. Continuing to try to break the model. Let's go ahead and switch this down here to a partner proprietorship. Okay, and now let's just verify that the retained earnings came out to 10. Yeah, it did. So our balance sheet still balances and everything flows the way that it's supposed to. So that's good. Now, what else? What else? Okay, I'm going to try to break this by doing something that you might find yourself needing to do. right? So let's say that there are some different account balances. Let's add a new line for our balance sheet here. So let's, I don't know what I would use for a new account, but let's say we have specialty items, current assets. I don't know if that's even a thing, but you get what I'm going with this, right? And we've got $100,000 worth of that. Now, we know, right, these are current assets, so let's just put in a new line in our balance sheet. And so actually we need to pick that up and pick up column B. Now, right, the balance sheet doesn't balance because we haven't, you know, we've got this balance sheet over here, but we didn't give it a means of basically recording that in a double entry fashion, right? We would have needed to find a way to pay for that. If the balance sheet doesn't balance, that means that we're missing something. We're missing something on the liabilities side, or we haven't gone all the way through the model, okay? So be very aware when you add extra lines into your model that you flow through all the ramifications of them, that they are in there correctly. I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that. And there we go. It's gone. Okay. So basically what we've got right here is a model that seems to work pretty well, that is flexible as far as its dates, so that you can have it be for any year, 2025. You can have it be for Tammy's bread shop. This is my plan B, right? And it should just flow right through. Take a look at that. The reason that this looks funny is because I told it to show me the formulas, right? But there it is, Tammy's bread shop. Here's my income statement. Here's my balance sheet. I'm in balance, and my cash flow statement. So this is a fully functioning 3-page spreadsheet. And in terms of formatting, okay, so you want to make it nice and readable. And so you know, these spreadsheets, the actual worksheets are reasonably readable. They look nice. The only thing is, right, I would suggest that you might want to have the assumption page be nicer looking, because remember, this is how you're gonna this is like your calling card. This is how you're gonna go around the company trying to get people's inputs into your model, right? So let's say assumption page. So we'll give it a title. We can make these two, we can give them white fonts so that you can't see that list. What else? We could, when you're working with assumptions, it is not a bad idea to have another column that says basically source. And this is, you know, you don't necessarily always need it, but if you're making a business model or a forward-looking business model, if somebody says, hey, yeah, I think we're going to have 3.85 million in sales next year, you want to say, you know, Dudley Blossom says so on the 27th of, or the 17th of March, 2020, right? So that way he's accountable, right? You need to remember where you're getting your numbers from. And let me tell you, when people see their names written down to next to where the numbers came from, people sharpen their pencils. People give you much better estimates if they know that you're going to write down where you got the information. And this becomes more important in financial projections and business planning. So let's just get in that habit. All right. So here's our assumptions. And actually, I'll take a page out of there. And then you can go ahead and just format this however you want. I always used to, when I was young and doing this for a living, I always used to make the background a color, make it pink, and then I would make all the squares that could actually be used, I would make them all white with borders, so it almost kind of winds up looking like a data entry sheet. It is a data entry sheet, right? And so people know that they can only enter data in these white cells. Again, you'd need to make some adjustment. You know, now this white font is no longer working for us. We'd have to make it the same color as the background to make it disappear. That's okay. Okay, so that's one of the things you can do, and that's one of your options. And then, of course, you'd want to have these source lines also obvious that they are meant to be filled in. And then if you are going to be running around with a physical piece of paper that's printed, right, maybe this isn't the best option. First of all, if you're running around with a physical piece of paper, you're going to want to make the rows deeper, like that, so that people can actually write in them. But as I was saying, if you're going to run around with a piece of paper, you probably don't want the background to be colored. You probably want the background to be white. So let's go ahead and make the background white, and then make the data entry areas colored. You see where I'm going with this, right? So this starts to look like the models that I made at my last job, right? With a white page, data entry in blue. Okay, so this is how we would do that. Oops. But you can make it however you think looks nice, or you think looks easy to understand, right? So you could do that, and then let's see, we want to make this top row a little thicker, make the font a little more visible. How if we make that 14 and bold as well? We can, that's probably enough, right? Make this a little narrower. Anyway, so now you can envision, if you're running around trying to get inputs from senior management or from clients about what all these line items are going to be, you can actually print out a piece of paper and have your little data entry form. And then what we have now is a model that'll take all these, and no matter what happens, right, we can change this to 2016, right? This all changes. We can change the name of the company, you know, whatever. It all flows through. It all works properly. It looks professional, and people will be impressed. Trust me, that an undergraduate has this. So that is the end for the first set of videos on linking financial statements for your portfolio.